All right, thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for your participation in that. Just an FYI, you're all muted for this webinar. And if you have any questions, again, just chat them in the chat feature throughout, and we'll actually have a question and answer time at the end of our webinar. So as I previously said, my name is David Bramlett, and I want to thank everyone for logging on to today's webinar about Quest for Success, America Achieves New Career Exploration course. I'm a Senior Director of America Achieves, and I help lead our work in the K-12 sector, helping to link our education systems to the workforce demands of the future. For those of you who are not familiar with the work of America Achieves and Educator Networks, we are a nonprofit that helps scale big ideas in order to create clear pathways for economic advancement, civic engagement, and success for all in a rapidly changing economy. The educator networks in particular help build the education to employment field by identifying, supporting, and developing evidence-based models and best practices, Quest for Success being one of those. We create these models and best practices through working hands-on with educators in the field, similar to the process we use to develop Quest for Success. We also develop tools and resources such as white papers, videos, and case studies to inform the field, which you can all access on our website, www.americaachievesednetworks.org. It's also at the bottom of this PowerPoint. Previously, before working at America Achieves, I worked in education philanthropy and also was a principal of a school in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Just so you know, this webinar is being recorded. You can access this on our website, the recording of this webinar at the end on our website. Presenting with me today are two of my colleagues, Heidi Ramirez and Sherry Rodman. Heidi and Sherry, why don't you provide a little information about your background before we jump in?
Good afternoon, Heidi Ramirez here. As David said, I work at America Achieves, and I have the pleasure of working primarily with our various educator networks, so teachers, counselors, school leaders from across the country, and in several different cohorts and professional learning communities. But prior to this work, I worked in urban school districts. I've been a chief academic officer in Milwaukee and in Memphis. I've worked in higher education, particularly on teacher and principal training. And done some policy work and work in philanthropy as well. But really excited to be with you and to share some of the exciting work that really mostly has been developed by educators in Louisiana and across the country.
Hi folks, this is Sherry. Thanks for joining us today. I've worked with teachers and principals through our Educator Voice Fellowships for the last 5 years or so, and had the pleasure of working closely with educators who created Quest for Success. Previously, I was a high school math teacher and worked with a couple other organizations supporting education.
Great, thank you so much, Sherry and Heidi. So our agenda today. So the goal of our webinar, Why Are You Logged On, is to provide you with all the information possible about Quest for Success, this new career exploration course developed by America Achieves and these educators. That means we'll be answering these following questions for you today in the webinar. Number one, why should we focus on career exploration? Such a big topic. So why such a focus on career exploration? We'll start there. Secondly, what is Quest for Success? This is where we walk through the design principles of the curriculum to get you integrated into how we're thinking about the curriculum, how we thought about the curriculum development, and what you'll see in the curriculum. Number three, how is Quest for Success developed and revised? This is when we get the chance to tell you and show you, and you actually get to hear from some of the amazing educators who designed the curriculum. Number four, what resources are provided with Quest for Success? We're actually going to show you the curriculum materials in this webinar. So you're going to get a chance to see them. You're going to get a chance to see the actual units, the actual teacher rubrics, the actual student resources. Sherry's going to show you all those today. Number four, how and when can I access the Quest for Success? We'll give you all those details at the end. As I said before, if at any time you have a question, please use the chat feature and someone will try to answer it for you. If we don't get to it at the moment, we'll have a question and answer time at the end of the webinar. I'm now going to turn the presentation over to my colleague, Heidi Ramirez, who will delve down into the reason that we developed Quest for Success and the structure and design of the course.
Thank you, David. Really glad to, oops, I'm going the wrong direction here. Glad to be with you, as I said, and glad to start this conversation about sort of what do we even mean by and why we're working on career exploration. I noticed in the chat room, we've already got lots of good colleagues offering good suggestions, and clearly many of you have been thinking about this for a long time. So I just want to do an added welcome to colleagues from Skills USA, the ACT, Civil Rights Museum, the National Civil Rights Museum, Louisiana Department of Education, and the educators from around the country. Clearly, we're tapping into something you all care about, and I think we mostly acknowledge that career exploration, while we don't always have a perfect definition for what this is, we know it's important and probably begins as early as kindergarten and is really kind of a lifelong process of exploring, preparing for, and navigating career success. Why we're thinking about this in particular, I'd love for you to think for a minute about students you've worked with in your school or district and someone you've been particularly proud of. What did it mean for them to really be career ready? What did they know once they graduated from high school? What knowledge, skills, dispositions, and character did they develop? And what kinds of skills did they develop in order to navigate the system of post-secondary and career options when they left you? So if you can kind of imagine a student and some of those sort of, that skill set of the toolbox they left you with, we'll continue to talk about that throughout. And that brings us to this question about the why we're doing this work. Certainly, we're all aware that there are changes in technology and the world that have us really thinking about that profile of a graduate in particular, because right now we're seeing incredible mismatches between jobs and skills. So that's the case where we've got 4.4 million jobs in the US that remain open, not because there aren't folks looking for work, but because their skills don't match those of the current workplace. And that's particularly true in middle skills jobs, where about 30% of the vacancies are. Another quick point here, many of the jobs, many of the degrees and credentials that once mattered aren't enough today, right? There was a time when just getting a high school degree was enough, and only 28% of jobs required any post-secondary education. Now, and as we're hitting on the peak of 2020, at least 65% of jobs require some education past high school. Now, that's not always a four-year degree. And in fact, while we know those with a four-year degree earn more on average than most others, it's also true that nearly a third of those with two-year degrees earn more than four-year degree holders. Those of you who may have a college graduate living in your basement or having returned home probably know what I'm talking about here. But the reality is, even our most talented college degree holders haven't necessarily been prepared for particular careers and career paths and the knowledge and skills needed to be successful in those. While there are plenty of folks who have finished high school, gotten some kind of professional credential, or gotten some post-secondary training, and are actually doing very well in the workplace, again, particularly in the middle skills areas. So in fact, we need to do more to prepare all of our young people for these rapid advances in technology and globalization that are really causing sort of the job requirements to change faster than they ever have before. Again, going back to that high school graduate you had in mind, what exactly were they thinking of and ready for? Would they and will our students going forward continue to have access to good jobs and achieve career and life success? And that goes back to our earlier question to you about what are the necessary skills to be successful. Too often our education systems struggle to keep up with this work and to really sort of have a way of identifying both what are the new career possibilities and what are the corresponding demands. In particular, we tend to be always a little bit behind, and our students don't necessarily have the skills to then sort of always be ahead like we'd like them to be. And that's really why we've been doing this work, why we've been engaging with educators to help folks understand and help prepare students to understand the various careers, the different pathways to those careers, and the necessary skills, knowledge, and dispositions to be successful. So I want to just say a little bit to you about what is Quest for Success. Besides being a cute name for a course, it's really a great resource, we believe in, particularly because it's been developed in ways that can help hit on a couple of different things. One, we want to help students develop these essential cross-sector employability skills, particularly the ability to communicate, collaborate, and lead. And as folks have said in the chat room, this isn't all brand new. Some folks talk about these as the 4 C's or the 6 C's. Certainly Skills USA, the 21st Century Skills. There are a whole host of resources identifying these, including a variety of national and international surveys where they're highlighted by employers, many of whom say the technical skills are less important to them. They can train on them, but they're looking for young people who have these core cross-sector skills. By the way, some of you might think of these as soft skills. At America Achieves, we really try not to call them that, in part because they're pretty hard to learn and master and apply in different contexts, and we think they need explicit support. So it's really important to us and in the design of Quest for Success to hit on that. We also want to make sure that our students really start to understand the range of new and exciting careers in industry sectors. When I went to school, and many of you, we learned about doctor, lawyer, nurse, teacher, and firemen and policemen. But if you ask folks about healthcare professions, for example, many people struggle to name more than doctor and nurse, maybe a radiological technician. But that's actually one of the largest growth areas in medical professions, and again, middle skill areas, and far fewer folks can describe those careers. Or if you're living in Colorado, to talk about mineral extraction, or if you're living in Memphis or Newark, to talk about transportation, distribution, logistics. How do we help parents, students, teachers learn more about those careers, and then also learn about themselves and their interests to successfully navigate high school, post-secondary ed, and career pathways? And all of this challenge, if you will, has been taken up by a group of educators in Louisiana and then adapted to develop a course there, an open resource that then would be applicable across the country. So you talked a minute ago about your vision of a career-ready graduate. We want to make sure we have a chance to hear from everybody else as well, so we're going to come back to that. In the meantime, here's how we're thinking about career-ready graduates. These are folks who, when you think about your profile, are really able to demonstrate knowledge and skills in 3 big areas. And I saw many of you identifying these as well. Core academic content knowledge, and these are the skills we typically think about in terms of core academics like math, science, social studies, etc. So that's one big bin, if you will. The second bin is the job sector specific technical skills. And very often we think about this as the purview of CT teachers. This is where students develop very specific technical skills, often detailed in specific career pathways and industry-based credentials. There's a third category as well we think is pretty important, and that's, again, this cross-sector skill area. Again, that's the cross-sector skill area, these employability skills that include many of the things you've been identifying: critical thinking, oral communication, collaboration, responsibility, and professionalism. As a chief academic officer in big districts, I often talked about folks being college and career ready, but I admit a lot of the time we were really focusing more on college ready with the assumption that if we got young people there, they'd also be career ready. As a result, frankly, we didn't spend a lot of time or often enough time on those second 2 areas, and we really just sort of assumed cross-sector everybody would get to somehow on their own. But the evidence suggests right now no one is explicitly responsible for the cross-sector employability skills, and too often it's underattended to, which was another big important case for developing this course. And it sounds like you've identified many of these similar skills as well. Looking here, lots of problem solving, communication, soft skills, being positive, flexible. So it sounds like we are actually hitting on a whole bunch of the same things you've cared about. I see collaboration, adaptability, teamwork. Loved the comments around ethics and cultural competencies, which are also identified by employers. Creativity, adaptability, conflict, innovation. This is fantastic in part because it says we're hitting on many of the things you say matter and that we're finding matter as well. And in fact, then are used to structure the course. So we've really focused this around several different competency areas: applied knowledge, which would include some of the academic work. And you can see several listed here: relational skills and personal attributes, executive and communication skills, career navigation, post-secondary navigation, financial literacy, and civic engagement. A couple of flags are important pieces. So those in orange, the relational skills, the communication, career navigation, were all really important to the work we've designed here, particularly because we think of this course as being suited to students, particularly in 8th and 9th grade, to help them think about, early enough on the kinds of careers they may be interested in. In some places, it may also help them identify which high schools they want to be applying to, which career pathways they may want to start pursuing. And so that's really where the emphasis is. But we also know even as early as 8th or 9th grade, our students need to start to learn about post-secondary transitions, about college exploration, about applying for financial aid and high school planning and graduation plans. And likewise, so many of our young people don't have the support they need around financial planning to be able to make good career choices and good post-secondary choices. And certainly we believe in really advancing civic engagement and character development across all of this. We want to make sure our young people, our leaders, can communicate, can work with other folks, not just to be tolerant, but to manage conflict in productive ways, to learn from each other and build on each other's strengths. And so we're really excited to have some of that built into the course as well. So really excited to continue to share with you all of the exciting work here. In particular, to dig in a little bit on some of the core careers one can explore. So for instance, we want to make sure students really understand the regional employment landscape. We want them to really be able to leverage, oops, I'm sorry, I think we've gone too far ahead there. Want students to be able to sort of develop self-awareness. There we go, one more time, sorry folks. When we talked about being able to understand the different careers, those will vary a little bit by each community. We know that, but there are certainly some major industries across the country. And so right now, Quest for Success provides some more explicit opportunities for students to work in and understand careers in advanced manufacturing, in hospitality and food service, information technology. We believe it's important all of our young people understand the range of public service and community-oriented careers, as well as healthcare. And then certainly some work that would be even more specific to your particular location. So for instance, if you're in Arkansas, I know there's high demand in areas such as smart grid technology, advanced food manufacturing, management services. If you're in Tennessee, healthcare, advanced manufacturing. Again, if you're in Memphis, it's some TBL work. If you're in Baltimore and Boston, lots of healthcare focus as well. Colorado and the Dakotas, lots of extraction, and certainly lots of the Midwest and California and the coast around agriculture and agribusinesses. So while the particular career focus areas and the problems may vary a little bit by region, we think there's some big important ideas for all students to take on. And in particular, as they go through this course, they would develop some self-awareness, really identify sort of what their early aspirations are and their early interests are, examine their individual values and strengths. So this is partly about character development, as I mentioned earlier, as well as thinking about the things they value in terms of the kind of work they see themselves in and the kind of community they want to be part of and how they'll contribute to that. And then see themselves, in that future role and start to develop a plan for how they will grow as an individual to meet their goals. So in that way, the course is designed, as I suggested, to really align to the regional employment landscape for the 21st century, both what good jobs exist now and will exist going forward, particularly high opportunity jobs, those that will pay well, are less risk of automation, and where students can really support a family and a particular kind of lifestyle. The course is designed, as all of us do, I hope, as teachers and leaders, is really driven by thinking about the end in mind, focused on student outcomes, so used in evidence-centered design. And this is then using kind of the gold standard, if you will, for those of you who know the project-based learning work, particularly out of the Buck Institute. Each unit has a particular project-based learning activity that is aligned to a particular industry or employment kinds of performance tasks. This is very much a hands-on, minds-on kind of curriculum. Our pilot work has shown just how much students and teachers are loving being in the course, and I love the point that teachers are enjoying teaching it. And again, given the range of core concepts we're focused on here, it's really an integrated, engaging approach, and one we believe can be implemented at scale with fidelity, particularly given the range of supports that are built in and that Sherry will talk about in just a minute. So here's a quick snapshot of the course as it's been imagined with our educators. You can think of it almost as a continuum where students are beginning with reflecting on themselves, knowing who they are in relation to others. And that includes how they learn and how they lead, even beginning with some work on a vision board early on. In Unit 2 and 3, they begin to understand how to work in teams, first at the conceptual level and then solving problems together creatively, whether it's developing a food truck or another kind of cool performance task. In Units 4 and 5, they continue thinking about how they would lead responsibly, including through digital citizenship, which takes on some issues of bullying and relationships to others. And Unit 5 that takes on superheroes in their community, and particularly sort of ways of serving their community and the kinds of professions that are involved in that. And in the final units, planning for the future, they're really transitioning to how they will make it happen for themselves. So thinking about how they'll manage their money, how they'll navigate their career path, and how they look forward and develop plans they can implement to be successful. So that's really a quick snapshot of Quest for Success. We're going to dive in a little bit more here in just a second and continue to answer your questions as we go, I hope.
Great, thank you so much, Heidi. Before we transition to the next section on how Quest for Success was developed and revised, I just want to ask a quick question to the chat box. Which units excite you the most? Or what design features about the curriculum excite you the most? We'd love to hear kind of your feedback right now. Obviously, we can connect with you later about this, but which units excite you the most? Which units do you think really would help you and your students advance your vision of this profile of a graduate that Heidi talked about before? So I'd love to hear some answers in chat box as I continue on and tell you a little bit about the development and design. We're going to get, as Heidi said, Sherry's going to show you the curriculum. We're going to talk about the release of the curriculum, but we want to first help you understand how this course was designed by educators. So as you can see from this graphic, this journey for developing Quest for Success started back in the summer of 2017 when a partnership was formed between the Louisiana Department of Education, who some of those individuals are on the webinar today, and America Achieves to develop a completely new curriculum and replace an outdated career exploration course in Louisiana. America Achieves then recruited and selected educators to develop the curricular units and scope and sequence through our Educator Voice Fellowship in the fall of 2017 and the spring of 2018. And the spring of 2018, so a year ago, the draft units were field tested by teachers in Louisiana. Industry representatives and national experts provided feedback to ensure that the focus was on the correct cross-sector employability skills. And the tasks were authentic to the world of work, as Heidi said was a key design principle of ours. The feedback from the field testing last spring and from national experts and industry representatives was then incorporated into the curriculum. And so starting last summer with teacher professional development across Louisiana, we now have over 3,000 students piloting Quest for Success this school year in Louisiana. Huge shout out if any of those teachers or any of those administrators who have Quest for Success in their building are on the webinar. So we've been collecting data through this pilot from these pilot teachers through an evaluation study with TNTP and using the feedback from the pilot teachers to revise the course. So the great news is we've collected and revised this with the Louisiana version is that we wanted to design this course in the future, and that's why we're offering it now as a free open resource that districts across the country can adapt as they see fit. So part of the revision process now has been taking out the Louisiana specific information in the Louisiana version, and so that you can use the curriculum in your location, targeted at your industry sectors and employability statistics that you want to focus on. So we're excited to begin this process of this summer, offering it to you and offering it to other schools across Louisiana as Louisiana attempts to scale this across the state as well. So we'd be remiss if we didn't hear briefly from a few of the fellows who actually helped design this course.
What I would most want Louisiana educators to know about the fellows is that it's people just like them. It is them. It's teachers from classrooms in Louisiana. It's administrators from schools in Louisiana. It's not some outside firm that came in and just developed this, or some outside consultants. Oftentimes, as building level teachers and administrators, we say, why don't they just let us do it? Well, that's exactly what happened here. Pulled regular people from regular classrooms, and they came together to create this course. So it's for them, but it's also by them.
As an industry partner, I'm able to guide and advise their things that they're doing to help form this course, so that they're making sure that they're getting specific competencies that relate to the workforce today and the workforce of the future. So the reality is, in the state of Louisiana, that students in high school are already in our workforce. So at age 16, high school students are in the world of work already. And so the earlier we can get those foundational skills of professionalism, soft skill development, and key technical pieces to earn certificates early on are crucial to help to drive the workforce needs of today.
The greatest challenge, for preparing students for lifelong success is that we don't know what life is going to look like 60 years down the road. We don't even know, for some of the students when they're graduating, they don't know what they want to pursue yet. They don't know if they want to go straight into work, or if they want to go to a 4-year university or 2 years. So you're preparing students for the unknown, which is really difficult. The opportunity there, though, is there are a base set of skills, soft skills, competencies that you can prepare them with. And if they have those things, then regardless of what life looks like 60 years from now, they should be able to be successful. Or regardless of whether they want to change career midway through their lives, or if they change their mind about what they want to go to school for, if they have that core set of competencies, they should be able to be successful in whatever it is that they choose to do. And that is the greatest opportunity for us.
Great. That's super exciting to hear from some of those educators who developed it. I know a few actually I see are on this webinar. I know they're very proud of what they've worked to accomplish to develop. So what's the feedback been from the pilot? Very quickly wanted to share this with you. So first of all, teachers believe that Quest for Success will support their students in developing cross-sector employability skills, and that the Quest for Success units help students to apply this knowledge to everyday life. So I think two big wins there from what we've heard from teachers. First, not only in student skill development, which also teachers have reported an increase to the course. So when we gave the evaluation and they provided feedback in the fall to now, actually feedback they provided a few weeks ago, they reported increases in student skill development on these cross-sector employability skills. But also a huge win for relevance of the curriculum, that students, the teachers say that students can apply this knowledge to everyday life, which I know many schools are continuing to wrestle with, is how do you make sure your curriculum is relevant to everyday life and to what students are experiencing. And there's different ways of thinking about relevancy. Second is speaking of relevance, teachers also report that the Quest for Success performance tasks are grounded in the context of the real world, which again, as Heidi discussed previously, was a core principle when we thought about designing these performance tasks, and when we also thought about getting feedback from industry representatives on the performance tasks. Are these grounded in the real world? So industry gave us feedback on those, and teachers have said, hey, yeah, they are. We feel like they are. Finally, teachers also report that they have made key improvements in pedagogical practices. I'm going to jump to a slide in just 1 second, tell you a little bit more about those improvements. Students also believe and report. We also did student surveys on our evaluation of the curriculum, and so they've also had positive things to say about the curriculum. The first is that they believe that the work they're doing in Quest for Success will help them during and after high school. So hitting on that relevance piece again, connected back to the real life examples through the performance task. They also believe that Quest for Success has helped them develop a wide range of skills, of these cross-sector employability skills that we talked about being so important. So they realize, hey, I'm developing these skills. So it's not only teachers who are saying, yeah, I see students developing more collaboration, and here's how, and here's where I'm doing that, and here's how I'm rating that. The students are also saying, hey, I'm actually, I'm able to work well, or to work better with others than I was before. So what are the key pedagogical practices that teachers say they have improved on? Again, this is from a self-evaluation. We've asked teachers to date, how has your classroom practices changed over this course of the year? And you can see, as a result of teaching Quest for Success, they say that they use classroom technology more often. They use student groups more often, or about the same, and they also are using projects that engage students in answering a real-world problem than in their previous teaching and their previous curriculum in the previous classes. So now, one of my favorite parts of this presentation is being able to turn it over to Sherry Rodman, my colleague, who's going to actually show you some of the curriculum materials. And I know Sherry is trying to work on showing her screen.
So we're not quite yet to show the material. I think there's a couple more presentation slides first. And then we will walk through some of the actual materials. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so hi everyone. Yeah, in a minute we'll take a look at the materials, but first just wanted to throw up this slide again. I know we took a look at it a minute ago. The course includes 8 units that build from knowing the self and the self in relation to others, to leading responsibly, to planning for the future. In the early units, students first focus on themselves as they create a vision board and work on a successful plan. Then they develop collaboration skills and learn about best practices while working with the team. The middle units about leading responsibly allow students to explore ideas like entrepreneurship and how to be a respectful cyber or digital citizen, and learn about professionals in their community who give back and help in careers like those in healthcare or nonprofit work. Finally, the planning for the future units really let students think about what they want to be and how they are going to get there. They will revisit their vision boards from the beginning of the course, which is a good bookend, and learn about post-secondary education options and begin to put a plan in place. Each of the units has a core set of materials. A unit plan clarifies key themes and learning goals. The teacher guide provides more in-depth information about daily lesson plans and performance tasks. Student resources and performance task instructions help support student learning. And the teacher rubrics help students and teachers reflect on, assess, and provide feedback on learning. And then there are some additional materials included in specific units as necessary. Okay, now is the time. We're going to take a few minutes to look over materials from Unit 1, How I Learn and Lead. Okay, so we are going to start by looking at the unit plan. I think you should be able to see it now. At the top, you'll see a brief unit overview. And then the rest of the unit plan is divided into 3 sections. Stage 1 describes the desired results of the unit. You'll see big ideas, essential questions, and goals. Stage 2 includes assessment. This is where the performance tasks are described, as well as suggested formative checkpoints. And then stage 3 is the learning plan overview. So you'll see first a high-level day-by-day overview of the unit, and then a more detailed overview of each day. Next, we'll take a look at the teacher guide. And this is really the main thing that teachers would use while implementing the unit. It's comprehensive, and you'll see that everything you need is in there. Resources are linked directly in the teacher guide, so all you have to do is click and there are tips from other teachers embedded throughout. Each teacher guide starts with vocabulary and suggestions for how to introduce students and reinforce new vocab. And then each day of the unit is described in detail. So for example, let's take a look at lesson 1, day 3. It starts by students completing a paper plate icebreaker activity as a way for them to get to know their peers and learn about the positive characteristics they bring to group activities. The activity is described in detail, including, you'll see here, the suggested time frame, how to configure student groups, and necessary materials. Here you'll see a tip from another teacher. Before the activity, have a student share his or her meaning for the word respect. Then there are instructions for the teacher about how to facilitate the activity. Later in the class, students transition from reflecting on positive comments from others to a reflection of their own personal strengths by doing a personality self-assessment. You'll see that the link to the assessment is embedded directly here on the teacher guide. And there's also a list of alternative assessments that teachers could choose from depending on their preferences and student needs. Finally, there is a sample exit ticket that the teacher could use to wrap up the class. A couple days later in this unit, students do a values word association activity to develop a list of their personal values. And this lesson includes a video. Again, the link is embedded right here in the teacher guide. Later in the unit, students develop a personal brand, create a vision board, and then a student success plan. And I'll just say that we've heard a lot of positive feedback from both teachers and students about these activities. I think they've found them really exciting and beneficial. Let's take a look now at the student resource for the student success plan. Each of the student resources are formatted the same way. At the top, you'll see basic information for the student to fill out, name, date, and class or section. Then there's a short description of the performance task, followed by aligned goals and essential questions. And then, of course, a step-by-step directions for the student. In this case, step 1, complete your personal value goal statement. Step 2, complete your career goal statement. And you'll see it prompts the student to be specific and write in full sentences. Step 3, develop a course goal statement. And step 4, reflection. You'll see that the actual student worksheet is embedded right here too. So there really isn't anything the teacher will have to create. We've tried to make it as easy as possible to implement. Last, let's take a look at the teacher rubric for this performance task. Again, each of the rubrics are formatted similarly, so there's space at the top for the teacher to write the student's name, date, and class section. Then there is a checklist of deliverables. Does the task include the required components? And in this case, a couple relational skills like self-discipline and flexibility that the teacher would assess while observing the student throughout the task. Then there are the specific skills that the task targeted, and the teacher can indicate whether the student meets expectations and also write comments for each skill as well as notes at the very end. There are some other materials that I don't have time to share with you today. Obviously, the other performance task, an aligned rubric, as well as for Unit 1, There are also samples of student work and completed rubrics. While we switch back to the presentation, I'd love to hear in the chat what excites you the most from what you just saw. What content from Unit 1 or features of the resources would be most beneficial for teachers or students? Next, we'll talk about the million-dollar question, how and when you'll be able to access these materials. Because we are still wrapping up our pilot of the curriculum and receive feedback from teachers and students on the final units, we'll release the course materials on a rolling basis. There is a basic two-pager that explains the objectives of the course currently available on our website. A more detailed unit-by-unit overview, as well as materials for units 1 through 3, will be available in mid-June. Units 4 through 6 in mid-July, and the final units 7 through 8 at the beginning of August. All of the materials will be up on our website, americaachievesEdNetworks.org/quest4success, and you'll also receive an email when the materials are released. I'll also say here that if you're interested in modifying the curriculum, you are totally welcome to do that, and we can also set up a consultation call to help you think through that process. Okay, from here I'll take it back over to David to talk about some next steps.
Great, thank you so much, Sherry. As Sherry said, in the next 2 days, you're going to receive an email in your inbox, and the email will provide a link to this webinar recording. So I know a few people couldn't see Sherry's screen when she showed it, so you'll be able to see that. You'll be able to see the materials. I think someone said, hey, I love the thoroughness of the materials. And that's what we hear when we show this curriculum to district and school-based personnel is we want this to be a chance for teachers not to go hunting and gathering, but they're able to focus on implementation. They're focused on able to refine the materials as well. And so you're going to receive, I'm sorry, I got sidetracked there. Well, we're going to talk about that in a second. The email will provide a link to the webinar recording. It'll also provide directions on how to set up that consultation call with us about Quest for Success. If you have questions, if you or let's say you're a teacher on this webinar and you want to set up a consultation call with America Achieves and your principal, or your district personnel, we can definitely set that up. The link in the email will actually provide directions on how to do that. And number 3, it'll provide directions on how to download the curriculum when it's available. As Sherry said, the curriculum will be developing on that available on that rolling basis throughout the summer. So we've come to the end of our webinar. Looks like I've lost control of the screen. So Mary, could you advance it forward just one slide? Questions. So Heidi and I are now live and can answer any questions that you may have in the chat box. We'll answer them verbally for you now. I know we've been trying to answer some. I'm scrolling through looking at some of these questions. Heidi, any particular things you want to call out as you were answering? I know you're in here answering questions from people.
Yeah, well, lots of good questions and enthusiasm. I love that folks are already saying, hey, will there be a community of us teaching the course? So we'll come back to that, hoping that's a good sign that there is a high level of interest. But I would say a couple of clarifications, I think, for folks. So this was designed to be potentially offered for high school credit. In the case of Louisiana, we think nationally that could still be and should probably still be offered in middle grades as an option. Again, students could earn high school credit depending on what systems and rules your district or state has in place. So really it's an 8th or 9th grade course. We've seen some folks in the pilot try it a little bit younger. We want to be clear. We tried to make some accommodations, but we really do think the content, both the academic side of the work and overall some of these big ideas are much more relevant for folks in that upper middle grades, thinking about high school choosing, high school choice making, if you will, and early high school choices in terms of career pathways, etc. So I just wanted to flag sort of that piece. Sherry did a great job of walking through many of the resources. A couple folks asked about accessibility resources for second language learners, students with disabilities, etc. In, I think, each unit, there are some resources around how to differentiate for particular subpopulations, and in some cases, really helpful sort of the key vocabulary and additional texts at different reading levels that could help scaffold for students. We don't right now have a version for students who are visually impaired or that kind of thing, and there are some videos and things as well that could be a challenge for students with hearing impairment. So we haven't built in all those adaptations. We're happy to get ideas from folks about how to do some of that or work with anyone who wants to build some of that in as well.
I also saw, I just wanted to call this out, sounds like we said this verbally. This was designed as a full year-long course, obviously divided in these units. It was 50-minute class sections is what you'll see the lessons are structured to be. So obviously, if you're thinking about using this, you can take as a free open resource, again, that we're offering. So you can take and modify it as you see fit. But that's the way it is structured and written. Just scrolling through again, making sure that we have answered. So someone asked, not to everyone, about this course actually functioning in an online environment. So there is an online, I know of one online school who is in the pilot in Louisiana. So they have been able to adapt it to that. I think we could be able to make some connections if you're interested to hear how they've been able to use it. But they are using it in an online, I think it's high school in Louisiana. So we can make some connections. Just schedule one of those consultation calls, and we can make a connection for you if you're interested in that, interested in potentially hearing how they've used it.
And David, I would just reinforce, there were a couple of questions about cost. For us, again, this was a product of educator work. So they have been kind enough to kind of give up their time and expertise to help us build this, along with the support of the Louisiana Department of Education and a host of national partners. But our commitment always has been that this would be an open educational resource, free and adaptable to folks around the country. We're really excited about the work we're doing on the revisions with new and emerging partners, including the National Institute on Occupational Safety and Health, potentially with the National Civil Rights Museum, and a whole host of other folks who are really helping us do this in a way that it could and should still be a free resource for schools and districts, and allows you as well to make changes where you want and need to. So if there's further work to do on accessibility for particular student populations, some customization to a particular community and the kinds of industries or professions that you'd like students to focus on, and of course, aligning to your local or state standards on the academic side, CPE, etc.
Yeah, thanks Heidi. And I'm going to ask a great question. What sort of feedback loop is there for schools that work with America Achieves? What's the expectation for partnership in using this resource? So we will send out next year evaluation surveys. Obviously, we'd love to complete them, for you to complete them. That is completely voluntary for you to complete it next year, but we'd love for you to complete those and tell us how we're actually looking to get feedback as people pilot this and use this nationally. So you'll have a chance to give us your feedback through those evaluation surveys next year. And so, I mean, that's the expectation that you fill out and give us feedback. We love that because I think we're always thinking about next year as people roll this out across the country. Okay, we've had the feedback from Louisiana. Let's hear what people around the country are saying, and what are ways that we could potentially revise it even next summer to make it a better resource given the feedback we hear next year.
And I would just add to that, similar to the point about a professional learning community. So the idea of whether we help foster or as a collective, folks start to share ideas online in some kind of way and share examples. In the pilot, we've had about 2,500 students over the last several months working on this, and that group of educators has been in an online community sponsored by Louisiana Department of Education, where they're sharing questions, we're helping facilitate responses in real time, and where appropriate, sharing examples of student work or different teacher modifications. And again, we trust so strongly and heavily in the expertise of our educators. We're happy to help facilitate some of the learning where we can, but mostly want to leverage your expertise and your great ideas.
Yeah, a couple of things that I just want to call out and reading back through the comments, making sure we hit all the questions of people saying what they really appreciate about the design of the course, and I agree. And we heard from teachers, this idea of financial literacy, these things such as, and we didn't go too much into it, that unit takes into account, setting a budget, understanding how much what your salary will buy. In terms of if you were to make a salary of X amount, what would that actually buy? And I think those are the some key skills and talking about that building from students talking about and thinking about their values and their strengths and their desires at the beginning of the unit to then closing it out. And I think we didn't mention as well, students develop a student success plan in Unit 1, and they come back to it at the end in Unit 8, and they revise that student success plan, given what they've learned about the career options out there, given what they've learned about the post-secondary options out there for them and how they pursue a meaningful life and career. And so I think that coherent build is another thing that teachers have really appreciated as well.
So I think if we can leave folks with a final point or two here, I would say, one, it's really incumbent upon all of us to think creatively and frankly aggressively about how we're preparing our young people for careers and futures. That certainly includes the core academics, absolutely includes technical skills and career pathways, but where we're also explicit about where the other core competencies so that they have the knowledge and skills to continue to navigate and plan for careers, including getting to and through high school and post-secondary education as appropriate. And so really hope that you'll take a look at this as it's available, start to think about it as an opportunity, and if not Quest for Success or your adapted version of it, that you and your community will start defining what does it really mean to be career ready, and thinking explicitly about the work that has to happen to make sure all of your students are on track for success in that way. And if you get a chance to take a look at some of our other resources on this front, really hope that you will. And please make sure to fill out kind of the follow-up information so that we can be in touch with you, make sure you get the resources, and continue to send and share questions.
Yeah, hi. Thanks so much, everyone, for logging on. One final question I see around the Word documents. They will be available in Word documents so that you can utilize them as a free and open resource and not PDFs. So, Mary, final slide. We'll send you that follow-up information as well. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, david.bramblett@americaachieves.org. Also, other resources on the website. Make sure you go to the website and look at those other resources, whether it's case studies, white papers, videos, information about how we engage educators around the country to make sure that career readiness is a reality for every student. So thanks so much again, and we look forward to connecting with you soon.